Somerville for Divinity Designs. Today I'm here to share with you the release for February 2020. This month, Divinity Designs is releasing one stamp die duo, one embossing folder die duo, and 4 custom dies. Here are just a few of the cards that I've created with this month's release. The stamp die duo, Believe. The Believe stamp die duo contains stamps and dies so that you can easily die cut the images from the stamp set. Here you can see the branch that was cut using the Believe stamp die duo set. Simply stamp or heat emboss your image onto cardstock. Center the die over the stamped image. Then use removable tape to hold that die in place and die cut following the directions for your die cutting machine. After die cutting, you'll have a nice stamped die cut image. The embossing folder die duo being released this month is Quatrefoil. You'll have the embossing folder and then the coordinating dies. When using this die, be sure to emboss the dies to bring out the detail of the die. The die's Quilted Honeycomb background. When die cutting this die, be sure to die cut and emboss following the directions for your die cutting machine. After die cutting and embossing, you'll be left with the honeycomb pattern that you see here and also the die cut pieces that fell from the inside. On this card, I put some of the die cut pieces back in the die. Be sure to keep watching this video for more tips on using the Quilted Honeycomb background die. Next, we have our matting rectangle die. The approximate size is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. This die will mat a 4 by 5 1/4 rectangle die. Next, we have our A2 landscape card base with layer. This is a 2-piece die set. The die will cut and score your cardstock to create an A2 sized card base, 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored at 4 1/4. The layer is 4 by 5 1/4. On this card, I also used the matting rectangle. Next, we have our A2 portrait card base with layer die set. Again, this is a set of 2 dies. The die will cut and score your cardstock to create an A2 sized card base, 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. The layer die is 4 by 5 1/4. This card uses the A2 portrait base with layer along with the matting rectangle die. Here's the A2 portrait card base with layer die set where I've already gone ahead and embossed the Quatrefoil embossing folder. You could use this on your base card like you see here if you'd like to add a pop of color. Underneath the layer die from the portrait card base with layer die set, use our matting rectangle. Here I have a piece of cardstock cut with the A2 landscape card base. The layering panel is cut with our beautiful blooms pattern paper. You can use those together to create a card or add a pop of color by using our matting rectangle die on top of the base panel and then add that layering panel. The cards shown here were all created using the A2 landscape card base with layer die set, the A2 portrait card base with layer die set, and a matting rectangle to add a pop of color underneath the layer panels. When using the Quilted Honeycomb background die, be sure to die cut and emboss following the directions for your die cutting machine. Embossing the die will bring out the details of the die. After die cutting and embossing, you'll end up with a frame, and you'll also end up with the die cut and embossed pieces that fell from the center of the frame. You can use this die many different ways. Here, after die cutting and embossing, I simply adhered some of the die cut and embossed pieces back inside of the die to create flowers for my background. Here I have the A2 landscape card base with layer along with our matting rectangle. You can layer these together and then adhere that honeycomb background die cut panel over the pattern cardstock. You can die cut and emboss the honeycomb background die. Then you can remove the die cut and embossed pieces from the die. Here's the die cut and embossed quilted honeycomb background on top of the matting rectangle die. And here you can see how it layers on the A2 portrait card base with layer die set. After die cutting and embossing, you can then turn the quilted honeycomb background panel over. Use your favorite adhesive to the back. Or you can use adhesive sheets prior to die cutting and embossing. This makes inserting those little quilted pieces back into place a lot easier. You could use the layering panel from this die set to place underneath the quilted honeycomb background die, or you can layer it directly on top of the matting rectangle. Here I'm using the matting rectangle for a pop of color. Now you can add the quilted panels back into place if you'd like, or use this on your card base as desired. Again, to make things easier, you could use the adhesive sheets before die cutting and embossing if you're choosing to add the quilted honeycomb pieces back within the panel. Then continue adding as much or as little of the quilted honeycomb pieces back within the die area as desired, and then embellish your card. For more inspiration, visit our samples gallery, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Pinterest and Instagram.